What is up, True Crime World? You're here with Luminal on the Wall. I'm Becky.
And I'm Bevy. And today's case is about a young girl who really struggles in her early adolescent years with overwhelming anxiety and a looming sense of dread that she can't seem to get away from. When she goes missing, people are left wondering, did she leave on her own accord, or is something more sinister at play? This is the case of Becky Watts. Listeners' discretion is advised.
Hello to all our LOTW friends and family.
Hey, everyone.
Hey there, Bev.
Hey, Beck.
How's it going over there with your cranberry juice?
Swell. I like cranberry juice, and I like sitting, so, things are good.
Life is good.
Life is good.
I'm so happy for you.
How are things going for you on the other end of the table?
Well, I have my coffee and my water, so yep, that's all I need in life.
There you go.
Hydration and caffeine.
They somehow just counteract each other to make a nice equilibrium for you?
I don't know if they counteract, but they work really well together.
That's true.
I'm hydrated, no headaches, caffeine, more energy. Woohoo.
Life is swell, as I said.
Life is swell.
How can you not be happy?
Bev, you got any good stories for me before we get started?
No.
Really not a single one?
No.
Gosh, darn it.
I'm in one of those moods where I feel slightly cranky. I'm like, everything's just, I'm like, oh, you're asking me how I'm doing? So why did I say swell, is what you're wondering. Out of obligation to put on a happy facade.
Wow.
It's not like I'm unhappy, but when you're just like, I'm cranky.
I didn't realize that because 3 minutes ago we were laughing hysterically.
Yeah,
somewhat.
but my overall energy within is slightly annoyed.
You are a grumpy bumpkin.
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, it's not going to be noticeable for anyone, but I'm slightly annoyed at nothing and everything all at the same time. So
this is what I have to deal with.
This is what Becky deals with on a regular basis. God bless you for being a ray of sunshine.
That's right.
Because my cloudy storm
is ever present.
Tries to take over sometimes.
All the time.
But this case that we're going to do is horrific.
Yes.
Truly horrific.
It is.
It's sad. And yeah, it's just shows you the worst side of humanity. And it's rather confusing as to why it all happens. And it's just really unfortunate for many people involved.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should get into it.
Yeah, let's get your grumpy ass into it.
Yeah, let's get my cloudy motherfucking lightning bolt and thunderstorm ass into the conversation. Yeah, here I go. Are you ready? On June 3rd. Just kidding.
What did you say?
On June 3rd.
On June 3rd,
1998, in St. George, Bristol, England. A little girl. No, I'm just kidding.
A little girl.
I'm not going to, but.
He was nearly 5 years her senior. I'm on the wrong page. Oh, here I am.
Right. So, I'm just joking. That was a joke. That was a joke coming from me. You're so funny. Thanks. No, but anyways.
Jokes are your strong.
All hilarious, gut-wrenching jokes aside.
Yeah, funny, haha. Move on.
Okay. So, on June 3rd, 1998, in St. George, Bristol, England, a little girl was born who would soon find herself at the heart of a tragic story, one that no one could have predicted.
Welcome to Tales from the Chesterfield, the Canadian podcast about the world of true crime and haunted history. Join us, your hosts, Alicia and Kayla, every Tuesday as we explore the chilling and comedic side of Canada with no toonie left unturned. Grab your Timmies, cozy up on your Chesterfield, and let us be your passport to the captivating and the cryptic with a uniquely Canadian accent. Subscribe now everywhere you get your podcasts and don't miss a single story.
Becky Watts entered the world to parents Tanya Watts and Darren Galsworthy, joining her older brother Daniel, who is nearly 5 years her senior. But like many families, things weren't picture perfect for long. When Becky was just 3, reports of neglect surfaced, prompting a life-changing decision. Both Becky and Daniel were moved from their mother's care to live with their father Darren and his new wife, Angie Galsworthy. Angie's household came with a new dynamic. Her son Nathan, who was 11 years older than Becky. Now, Becky was a feisty, spirited child with a sense of humor that could light up a room. But that light of hers wasn't for everyone, particularly her new stepbrother Nathan. While Nathan bonded quickly with Daniel, he kept his distance from Becky, showing no interest in her. Now, this tension would quietly set the stage for some of the disturbing events that are to come. And by the fall of 2011, Becky Watts was 13 years old. But what should have been the start of a carefree teenage chapter was anything but. Concern was mounting within her family, leading Angie, Becky's stepmother, to reach out to Children and Young People Services for help. Becky had developed intense anxieties, finding it increasingly difficult to leave the safety of her home. Attending school had been a nightmare, and conflicts between Becky and her father were only making things worse. The situation finally drew the attention of Family Intervention Support Services. And during sessions with a support worker, Becky opened up about her fears that went beyond the usual teenage worries. She confessed that she felt terrified of the world outside her home, a fear that had taken root after reading about abductions and watching horror films. Now, haven't we all been scarred by one of those two things?
Oh, fuck yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
me and you alike, girl, but it does kind of seem that the things that she's expressing could potentially be caused by something a little bit more than that. Because I did watch those things and I did have anxieties, but none that really caused me to
limit your life and your experiences going out, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, aside from maybe having trouble falling asleep at night, you know?
I mean, you know what? I was really scared of someone breaking in our house and taking me or killing me. And one night, I remember, I was so scared I could not sleep. And I heard our neighbor stamp his foot outside. And I thought someone was going to come kill me. And I ran upstairs to Mom, bawling my eyes out. She came downstairs, put me back to bed, and made me say the Lord's Prayer over and over again.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic mom move.
I rebuke you in the name of the Lord.
Yeah.
Devil, get out of my house.
You're not
get out of my mind.
Yes.
I eventually did fall asleep, but it was an intense fear for a long time. So I do understand, how she maybe got to that point, but it sounds like it's a little more than just a general fear that invades her mind once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just more pervasive, and it does seem just like something more intense has occurred.
Poor girl. That would be a terrible feeling. Imagine being scared of the world around you.
No, that would be terrible.
Take away from
I
your
couldn't imagine.
experience. Yeah.
Obviously, it is affecting her severely. So while we kind of said maybe it was more than the horror films and reading about abductions, she did say that the horrors she read and saw on screen began to loom large in her mind, trapping her in a constant state of dread. So everyone who she's confiding in has no other reason but to just believe exactly what she's saying. But, as we alluded to, / completely outrightly said earlier, there was more to her struggle. Becky also reported ongoing conflicts with her older stepbrother Nathan, who she said would mock her unkindly, teasing her about her weight. This relentless bullying pushed her into a dark spiral, leading to a diagnosis of anorexia nervosa, which, can we just say, does kind of sound like Wingardium Leviosa. I know it's not, obviously, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It had the same type of ring to it.
I think it's how you said it specifically.
Anorexia nervosa. I know, it's not a joke. It is something very severe, and
yes,
a lot of people really do struggle with this. And it is really unfortunate that one person in her life and their comments affected her in such a way that she did end up being diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. So she was eventually referred to an eating disorder clinic where she showed some improvement, but the underlying issues continued to simmer. And by May of 2014, the red flags were impossible to ignore. Becky was still too overwhelmed by anxiety to return to school and was instead being taught by the hospital education service. However, despite the support, it was clear that something was going on with Becky. Professional concern grew as the once lively, spirited girl seemed to be fading away. She was trapped in a world of fear and isolation. And the warning signs that the professionals noticed were growing a little bit more ominous. because Becky confided in staff from the hospital education service that she was being threatened by a young male peer who was holding explicit photographs of her over her head, threatening to publish them online.
Oh, God. I hate when people do that.
It's so messed up.
It's fucking rude. You know what? Although I am a mature adult now, and I can only imagine how I might have felt at 13, in my mind, I always think now, like, go for it. You want to fucking blackmail me? Go ahead. Show what I got.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. That's a mature stance
Exactly.
as an adult, where it's like, really, you're going to try and threaten me? I'll make lemon juice out of these lemons, bitch.
Like, get OnlyFans, mother trucker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I was 13, like, even looking back to who I was,
the world would be ending.
like, oh my God.
Yeah, that would be
banned by the
tough.
church or something.
Yeah, you'd be
my
upset.
titties online. That wasn't my choice.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be mortifying. I do get it.
And the pressure of it weighed heavily on Becky. But, at this time in her life, she was too scared to involve the police. She feared what might happen if she told them what was going on. And the dread of repercussions kept her silent, even as her anxiety about the situation grew. Behind closed doors, Becky's father, Darren, and stepmother, Angie, began noticing unsettling patterns as well. They later admitted to a review team that, in hindsight, Becky's behavior became more challenging whenever Nathan Matthews, Angie's son, was around. It was only after everything unfolded that they realized the extent of the torment Becky endured at his hands. They lamented, saying that they wished they had seen it sooner, because if they had, they felt that they could have done something to prevent it. Now, even though this whole situation was rather not exposed to her family, Becky's fear of Nathan was no secret to those closest to her. She had told several people that she was terrified of him. Her best friend, Courtney Bicker, recalled the sickening threats Matthews made to Becky, recounting sickening and vivid descriptions of how he would kill Becky, even once detailing how he would batter her with a sledgehammer. And mind you, these weren't idle threats in Becky's mind. They were genuine, bone-chilling warnings that kept her in this constant state of fear.
I couldn't imagine growing up with your, I guess, step-sibling, but, like, sibling nonetheless, threatening you like that behind, like, your parents' back, And you're like, oh my God, is he gonna do it? Like, that would be so scary. Even if this person was, like, being sarcastic and joking, the fact that she was scared enough and thought it was real was horrible, right?
And to top it off, she wasn't in the best place with her dad, as we had mentioned. So I don't think she would have gone to that person, and probably wouldn't have gone to Angie and been like, yo, your son is a fucking whack job.
He just threatened me.
So
he in detail described how he's going to kill me. They'd be like, what the hell?
Like, would they believe Becky?
I'm sure they would.
But still, like, I can see as a young person, like, you don't feel comfortable saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show that she was experiencing something a little bit more intense than just like distant horror films or recounting of abductions. Like, she was literally being faced with this from someone she knew.
Yeah.
So, yikes. It really does explain a lot. Like, she's walking around in literal fear of her life. Now, there are a lot of professionals that got to sit with Becky, and even a child psychologist couldn't ignore the intensity of Becky's distress. During sessions, Becky also confessed that she was scared of Nathan, sensing a danger that those around her didn't fully grasp until it was too late. As we said, her parents did not realize this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
However, the pieces were all there. There was an escalating tension between Nathan and Becky. Becky was a deeply troubled teenager at this point, and there was this predator truly just hiding in plain sight in front of everyone, antagonizing her.
And what's worse about this whole situation, Bev, is that Nathan actually raised some red flags of his own outside of anything he was doing with Becky.
Right. Yeah.
And the major one was that he actually took a liking to younger females.
Which Becky was.
She was.
She was quite a bit younger than Nathan.
Exactly.
However, Nathan wasn't really into Becky, or at least gave up that persona, right? He, in fact, gave up the opposite. Didn't like her, didn't want to be around her. However, there were other women in Nathan's life that were younger than him that he showed a keen interest in. For example, at the age of 21, Nathan brought 15-year-old Shauna Hoare into his family home, despite his stepfather Darren's objections due to the significant age difference. Nathan was hella determined. Eventually, despite the initial resistance from his stepdad, Shauna and Nathan began dating exclusively. So he's 6 years older than her. She's currently a minor. It's a significant age gap.
Mm-hmm.
And
super impressionable, this poor girl.
yeah. And we talk often about how predators use power imbalances to gain control of their victims. And I think this is a similar situation. Now, obviously, we have spoken about the tension between Nathan and Becky, right? Nathan seems to not like her. He bullies her. However, lurking beneath that surface is actually an obsession with Becky that ends up taking a really unsettling turn. Now, I don't know if this obsession was because he secretly liked her but wanted to put on a facade that he didn't, or if the obsession was this negative obsession where he hated her and loathed her but couldn't let it go. I'm kind of still unsure about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think later on in the investigation, we'll kind of speak to it a little bit, but myself, I'm unsure at this time. However, regardless of what the motive behind Matthew's obsession with Becky was, it would unfortunately take a very unsettling turn. Police had uncovered that when Matthews was 20 years old, he had crossed a pretty sinister line with Becky. He touched her leg through her clothing. Now, keep in mind, she was only 8 years old, so it seemed to be a little bit more of a flirtatious, inappropriate touch, right?
Yes.
Like one where you're kind of like, that's crossing a boundary and you're coming into my personal space in a way that
makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think that this revelation kind of hinted at this dark fixation that Matthews had with her.
I think the hard thing about it was like not many people like really witnessed that. Like he seemed more angry and had like a dislike towards her.
Yes.
So then to maybe even think that he had a bit of an obsession in any other way than like rage would be hard for anyone to understand.
Totally.
You know, like he covered it up pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously Becky had to experience it all, which is really tough for someone who's 8 years old, 10 years old, 13. Like it's hard for anyone. You wouldn't really understand it very well, would you?
Mm-mm.
Now, all of this mounting tension would come to a head on February 9th of 2015, around 11 a.m. Nathan and his girlfriend Shauna arrived at Nathan's family home, where Becky lived. At 11:03 a.m., Becky sent a text to her boyfriend, and by 11:15 a.m., Angie had left for a hospitable appointment.
Hospitable.
And later that morning, Nathan spoke to Angie on the phone. When Angie asked if Becky was still there, Nathan claimed they had heard the front door slam shut a short while earlier and assumed Becky had left. As the day wore on, Angie and Darren didn't think much of Becky's absence. She wasn't the type to wander off without informing anyone, and given her recent struggles, they dismissed it as a possible extension of her ongoing issues. However, the alarm bells began ringing the following day, when Becky's friend arrived asking if she was home. A sense of panic set in for the family. If Becky had been with anyone, surely it would have been this group of people, but no one had seen her for over 24 hours.
Yikes.
The parents' growing anxiety forced them into action, and at 4 p.m. on February 20th, so the following day, they made the heart-stopping decision to call the police and report their daughter missing. Given that she suddenly had disappeared, the national media jumped on the case, with Darren, Becky's dad, making a heartfelt plea on the news for his daughter to come home. The hope was either that Becky would see the broadcast or someone with information would come forward and help bring her back safely. In the meantime, police got to work talking to people closest to Becky. They used a more laid-back approach, hoping it would make people open up about anything unusual in Becky's life leading up to her disappearance. And it didn't take them long to find out that Becky's stepbrother, Nathan, and his girlfriend, Shauna, were in fact the last people to see her in the family home. While Becky's friends and other family members were quick to help, Nathan and Shauna were another story altogether. They were unusually reluctant to come in for questioning, which of course naturally raised concerns of investigating officers.
Oh, for sure. It's like, what? You don't want to help find your younger stepsister?
Yeah, like she's missing.
Like, why
No
not?
one's seen her. Like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you be forthright and forthcoming?
Why not is the question.
And of course, in a case where every second matters, their unwillingness to cooperate was a huge detriment to the investigation because they were the last people to see her. When finally Nathan and Shauna agreed to come in for questioning, they stuck to their story. They were at the family home, and just as they had told Angie, they heard the front door slam and assumed Becky had left. But their behavior was puzzling. Shauna seemed oddly giggly and lighthearted, while Nathan appeared disturbingly nonchalant, laughing throughout the interview.
Investigators are probably just sitting there and be like,
Do you think this is funny?
yeah. Do you think this missing young teen is funny? It's not, you idiots.
Yeah, it's very odd that laughing would be their response from them.
For sure. Especially Nathan being like close family members, you know?
I know some people laugh when they feel awkward, but pair that with nonchalant and lighthearted, it's like, this is not fitting with this scenario here.
No, it's not.
In addition, the officers noticed that the couple's account was too smooth. There wasn't a single inconsistency.
Not a single one.
No, and their story seemed rehearsed. This obviously raised some red flags, and although it was just an investigator's hunch at this point, they started to suspect Nathan and Shauna might know more than they were letting on.
Which I actually kind of find it funny because you think, oh, their stories match up. They must be telling the truth. But I watched this thing with investigators, and what they look for is like, usually someone has like the same account of the like events that happened.
Yeah.
But there's small inconsistencies just from like people's memories being different. But for the most part, all the major things add up. But when I was reading and watching documentaries on this, it was like every small, almost insignificant detail
was the same.
was identical.
So it was eerie instead of like realistic.
Yeah, hence why they felt it was rehearsed.
Wow, that's interesting actually.
Mm-hmm.
So now you know, guys, if you want your story straight, figure out little times to,
Don't be too perfect.
be different.
Yeah. Don't be too perfect in your recount of the days or
days.
situation.
It's like, I love how we always go to helping the criminal.
Why are we like this?
We're like, don't bring your phone. Make some minor inconsistencies, guys.
But I mean, like, I feel, okay, the minor inconsistencies might have not been obvious, but like the phone one just gets me every time. Like, were you hoping to like commit these crimes and then just be caught? Like, were you hoping that was the outcome? Surely it must have been, because you'd made that choice to bring your phone that literally made a path for the detectives on where you went that day.
Yeah, no, I totally
Like,
get it. I just think it's funny that we always go to that. It's like our sarcasm truly gets the best of us.
I think the thing is we like making fun of criminals and people who do bad things.
Yeah.
Be like, I don't care if I hurt your feelings. I don't care if I say something rude about you.
Dumb.
You're dumb. You made a mistake. You got caught. Idiot.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
weird, but also like matches us. It's like, oh, you think you did a good job with that dinner?
Well, you didn't, because they figured it out.
With the dinner? I was like making a whole new scenario, Becky.
Oh.
I was like trying to like think of how you would make fun of me. Oh, you think that dinner was good?
Oh.
And you're like, yeah, because they just figured it out. I'm like, we're on two different
I thought we were
wavelengths.
still talking about criminals
like,
and like being
same,
figured
but
out.
different.
So different. Okay, sorry, Beth.
Anyways.
Oh, did you think that dinner was good? Do you think I liked burnt food? No?
I think everyone should just make burnt food because their family will love it.
Love it. Just like
if you want your family to love your meals, burn it a bit.
burn it. Go ahead, light your roof on fire. It's all about the show anyways.
Oh, I just had flashbacks, Becky. Why are you doing that to me? If you don't know, I almost set my house on fire. Now you know. Okay, let's move on.
Classic. Water doesn't mix with oil.
Hey, I knew that. The tiny drip on my faucet did not, okay?
Her roof was stained black for like a year.
It's still stained black, bitch. We're moving on. I think you did that on purpose. I believe it.
It turns out I like poking fun at you just
Didn't
as much
even
as I like
deny
poking
it.
fun at criminals.
Didn't even deny it. Little witch. All right. So
I'm not
anyways,
upset.
they think that something more is going on, and to figure that out, the detectives have to dig deeper. Detectives brought in the CSI team to search Becky's home for any trace of evidence. Obviously, this is a crucial step in the investigation because it is the last place she was seen. And during their investigation, they discovered something unsettling. Becky's phone, her laptop, and her tablet were all missing. Yet, she had left behind her money and clothing. The missing electronics combined with the strange behavior of Nathan and Shauna only deepened this mystery and intensified the search for answers from investigators. And they would soon find some more details that would point them in the right direction because what they saw on the doorframe of Becky's bedroom were some small red stains. The staining went up from the floor to about shoulder height, and it contained what looked like fingerprints within it. If you weren't paying close attention, you might have just missed it. That's how discreet it was.
Yes.
And the investigators were left wondering, is this blood? So they decided to send it for DNA and fingerprint analysis to find out. And while that evidence was being analyzed, they brought Nathan and Shauna back in for further questioning. Shauna seemed to be trying to show empathy, telling the investigators how hard this was for Nathan, especially since he knew how tough it was on his mom. She mentioned that Angie and Becky were close. Nathan, on the other hand, took a different approach. Sorry, guys. He wasn't as visibly upset and didn't mention his mom's struggles. Instead, he admitted he didn't have much to do with Becky and didn't like her because she was rude to his mom. The second interview didn't reveal much new information, but detectives were already on edge, and this information that they did receive, I don't know, Becky, does it not kind of point to a potential motive for Nathan?
Yeah, he didn't like the way Becky treated his mom, so he maybe wanted her to disappear.
Yeah.
But also you kind of think of, that's an interesting take maybe, because all the struggles that Becky was dealing with, we know what it's like to be a teen girl without having those issues, and how much we acted out and how much of a pain in the ass we were to our mother.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Oh, God, yeah.
And so you think about, was she just being like a normal teenage girl with some anxiety, eating disorder,
Yeah, was it just all kind of par for the course of a teenage girl, and what she wasn't being abnormally rude to Angie?
Just normal teenage rude.
And then isn't it kind of weird that Shauna has a different account?
Yeah,
where she mentions that Angie and Becky were actually close?
Right, and that Nathan was struggling so much because he had so much empathy for his mom's now struggles with this.
Exactly. So this is kind of a situation where instead of being on the same page, they are not. They're on separate pages and giving separate accounts of what's going on within Becky, Angie, and Nathan's dynamic.
Exactly.
So after they have this interview, it wraps up. The detectives receive some crucial updates. The fingerprint found on Becky's door frame was a match to Nathan. And given that Nathan, mind you, he's over 20, he didn't live at the family home. And he and Becky didn't get along, so it was odd for him to have been so close to her room. And the revelations just keep coming because 12 hours after that, the DNA results come back from the door frame. It was, in fact, Becky's blood. Now, the evidence and the truth about Nathan's involvement was really becoming harder to ignore once that evidence came back.
Yeah, because there is absolutely zero explanations that he could give that could, explain away his fingerprint being on that door frame in her blood, though, right?
Exactly.
There's no reason based on their relationship.
Yeah, it makes zero sense.
Yeah.
So, of course, the investigators, after hearing this news, they spring into action. They track down Nathan and Shauna at their house in Bristol, which is just over a mile from Darren and Angie's home. They were there to arrest Nathan and Shauna on kidnapping charges. Of course, still holding out hope that Becky might be found alive. Now, once again, Nathan and Shauna find themselves in a police interrogation room. Both denied knowing where Becky was or what had happened to her. The investigation presses on, and a warrant was issued to search Nathan and Shauna's home. When the police arrived at their home, they were met with an unexpected obstacle. The door was blocked by 2 fridge freezers. The entire house was crammed with clutter, making it just like a maze to navigate through. And as detectives made their way upstairs, they came across a bathroom that stood out amidst the chaos. Despite the clutter filling the rest of the house, this bathroom was an anomaly. Sparkling clean and completely free of clutter. The stark contrast between the pristine tub and shower and the rest of the house only added to this growing sense of unease. What secrets might be hidden in this strangely immaculate space?
Yes, I watched like the police camera
Mm-hmm.
of them walking through, not like the whole video, but I saw the bathtub. It was, like you said, immaculate. Like it was so clean, Bev, compared to the rest of the house. You're like, I 100% see why that stood out. It wasn't just like, oh, maybe these people want to be clean in a clean bathtub. No.
Yeah, no.
No, it was like
That is,
eerily clean.
yeah, that is so creepy.
Yeah, like whoever cleaned that should go work at like hotels and
I
make
have
people
another
feel
little
really comfortable.
piece of advice for you criminals. If you're going to do something ungodly in your bathroom and you're going to clean it, make sure your house looks the same, okay?
Have it matchy-matchy, then it doesn't stand out.
Yeah,
Let's just use your brains a little bit.
Like, are you blind to the clutter, bitch?
They must be.
Like,
they low-key
clearly
hoarders,
you're-
Bev. They're
yeah.
hoarders.
It was bad, hey?
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, you know, a frat house. No. Hoarding sitch. Gone wrong. Bathroom absolutely spotless.
Weird.
Yeah.
So you obviously, as an investigator, as a person listening to this podcast, as the person talking about it right now, are like, was a body like in that bathtub? Was there blood everywhere? And you had to use bleach to to clean every nook and cranny to cover up a crime scene?
Make it sparkling clean.
Give me some luminol.
I mean, like, I know it happens and I don't want to spoil it, but like, that's your first instinct.
Yeah, that's what you have to think.
Yep.
However, even though the investigators find this, they still continue searching the home, and as they are doing so, Nathan and Shauna remain in custody. The detectives press Nathan with a crucial question. Had he gone upstairs to Becky's room at any point on February 19th before his mom came home? Nathan initially denies this, but then he wavers, saying he couldn't remember. If he had been upstairs, he claimed, the door would have been shut.
I always love this technique because they're kind of like setting him up because one, if he was there, he knows what he did.
Yes, 100%.
Right? So, but they're asking because they have direct evidence placing him there at some point fairly recently.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now what are you going to say? Are you going to try and find a way to explain this, stick to your story that, you hated her and never talked to her? Weren't up there. Like, what are you going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see how you're going to trap yourself here.
Yeah, and it's like, if you deny it because you want to stick to your story,
we know
you're going to contradict the evidence we found.
Exactly. But
if you say something, you're also going to incriminate yourself based on the evidence we found. It's like a catch-22. Is that what they call it? I don't know.
Sure.
A logical loop. Where
Logical
you can't get your way out of this one. Either way, you're going to,
Can you imagine, though, being the criminal sitting there? And you're like, okay, we're assuming that Nathan was in that room, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he knows he was.
Yeah.
They're asking, like, have you ever been there, like, just so casually?
On the day she disappeared?
Like, we're not saying we have evidence, but we're just asking. He's probably shitting, sitting there being like.
Oh, I thought you were going to say shitting himself.
I think that's where my mind was going, but I was on a different thought process, but basically that, actually. So he's probably sitting there just like, oh my God, why are they asking me? Oh my God, what do they know?
Mm-hmm,
what have they found? Have they found anything? How do I go from here? Like the panic that must be going on in his mind.
And then having to answer in real time.
Yeah, that must be so fun for an investigator to be like.
Oh my God, a criminal's life is just so tough. JK.
Are you stressed?
Are you feeling like you have an elevated heart rate? Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah,
Shocker.
no, I think I do enjoy this technique as well.
Yeah, just like fucking with them a little bit. Be like,
yeah, just a little bit, but it also just like forces them to say something incriminating either way. So as they are doing this technique, trying to see if his story would change under the pressure, The CSI team uncovers 2 receipts that are tucked away in an old dresser at the top of Nathan's stairs. The receipts showed that on the very Friday that Becky was reported missing, someone from Nathan's house had purchased a circular saw, goggles, a face mask, and gloves from B&Q.
And anyone who knows anything knows that like grouping of purchases, not a good thing.
Not a freaking good thing. Match with pristine bathroom, and our minds are fucking going crazy right now.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you this, Becky. CCTV footage confirms that Nathan was the one who made this purchase.
Yep, that tracks. Yep.
But the evidence that they're finding doesn't just stop there. The detectives also find CCTV footage of Nathan and Shauna buying cleaning supplies. Now, this discovery raises more questions, or answers them, about what happened in the days leading up to Becky's disappearance and maybe what happened after.
At this point, like, you got to be sitting there thinking, the detectives are like, this is the absolutely worst case scenario. This is pointing to, let's be real, I'm calling it out, dismemberment.
Right. That's exactly what the circular saw. That's what 100%.
I feel like everyone and us are thinking that, right?
Totally. And it's probably pretty clear that Becky is
not
likely
alive.
dead. Yeah. So this is probably where it gets really hard in any investigation, because the investigators are then burdened with such a grim task of informing the family that maybe their worst fears have come true.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they did. They informed Becky's father and stepmother about what could have happened to Becky. And after all of this evidence was found, the charges that were laid on Nathan and Shauna were upgraded to suspicion of murder.
Can you imagine how Angie feels? It's her son and her stepdaughter.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like, just knowing that he is now being arrested for the suspicion of her stepdaughter's murder. I know it's not like his actions are not reflected on her, but she loves her son. She loves her stepdaughter. What a terrible predicament to be in.
And not only that, Becky, but she also loves her husband.
That too, yes.
And that was his daughter. Like, it would just, the emotions and all the thoughts that she has to think of and confront are probably very overwhelming.
I could only imagine.
Me too. So after these charges have been increased to suspicion? Did I say?
Sounds like you said
suspicion.
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 That's what it sounds like.
Anyways, the investigators decide to confront Nathan with the information that they received from the search of his home. They were hoping to provoke a reaction and get him to reveal more. And their strategy paid off. Through his lawyer, Nathan provided a statement, which detectives insisted to be read aloud in his presence during the interview recording. However, when the statement was read, Nathan reacted by putting his fingers in his ears, trying to avoid hearing it. And that's probably because the statement revealed a horrifying truth. It read, "I, Nathan Charles Matthews, accept that I am responsible for the death of Rebecca Watts. On February 19th, 2015, I went to Crown Hill, St. George, Bristol with my girlfriend Shauna. In my car, I had a large bag, a stun device, handcuffs, tape, and a mask. I had planned to scare Rebecca by kidnapping her, believing her behavior towards my mother was a risk to her health. A few minutes after arriving, Shauna went outside for a cigarette. I retrieved the items from my car, went upstairs, and knocked on Rebecca's door. When she answered, I asked to speak with her. I can't recall the exact sequence of events, but I used the items to subdue her. During a brief struggle, my mask slipped and Rebecca saw my face. This made me panic, and I strangled her while she was partially in the bag." Nathan's chilling confession continued. He described how he had used the circular saw to dismember Becky's body in the bathtub, then wrapped the body parts in boxes and bags, and finally hid them in a shed a few hundred meters from his home. Nathan claimed that killing Becky was an accident, but even his own mother doubted this explanation, believing instead that he had intended to kill her all along. And while detectives appreciated Nathan's written confession, They suspected he was downplaying the brutal reality of what happened and omitted crucial details. They were also concerned that Nathan's version of events excluded Shauna's involvement. The detectives suspected that Shauna must have at least known about the crime and must have assisted Nathan in some way. And when Nathan was pressed for further details, he responded with no comment to every question.
Ugh, annoying.
Right?
Okay, just, Bev, let's break that down. Shauna had no involvement, wasn't aware. Like, what a crock of shit.
Yeah.
She drove with him there. Wouldn't she question, like, hey, why do you have a stun gun in your bag? Why do you have basically a kidnap/kill kit in your car?
Now, I have to say, that could all be just hearsay and speculation, but what isn't, partly because what if he had it in his trunk? She didn't know about it, right?
Okay, fine.
But what she cannot deny is going to get those cleaning supplies. Like,
yeah,
you must have known what happened, and there is no way that he did that all by himself. Like, come on.
Like, you're telling me...
You didn't hear a fucking saw? Like, you didn't question? You didn't see? Give me a goddamn break.
Yeah, like, that's not right. He's just omitting her involvement 100%. Also, how would he hide getting her out of the house and into the car?
Yes.
Without her seeing, and then bringing her into the house? How could he actually hide every step after he put her in that bag?
Yeah, like, even if she was in a bag, which, honestly, I just had to say, what a treacherous thing to do to somebody, and so devastating, and I'm just saying right now, Becky did not deserve that.
No.
That's just terrible to just, like, put someone in a bag like trash. I despise that on so many freaking levels, but that is what he did. If Shauna, in fact, saw this bag, you would know that's a heavy, heavy bag. Like, surely you could see that it's not just, like, run-of-the-mill stuff in the bag, right?
Yeah. And, like, how long she went out to the garden to have a smoke? How long does it take? What is the longest you could say, Bev? Like, I never smoked at one point. What was the longest you ever took to smoke one cigarette? 5?
Yeah, like, it's like a 5-minute thing.
5
I think
minutes?
unless you choose to have 2.
Maybe 10,
Yeah.
12 minutes?
But, like, let's get real. No, she knew. Like, I have no doubt that she knew. However, I don't want to make this totally about Shauna because I do feel that she was an accessory to someone's heinous crimes. And what I also question is something that we kind of spoke to earlier, is that power dynamic between the two and how that could influence Shauna's choices. I'm not completely negating her responsibility in this, but I'm just kind of speaking to some of the confounding factors that are at play here.
For sure.
And I just think he's very cowardly. I have to say, like, yeah, sure, you pled guilty in your lawyer's statement. And while I'm happy that he did so, I'm also fucking annoyed that he covered his effing ears. Like, you did this, dude. You did it. Don't be such an effing coward. Like, Becky was the one who went through this brutal attack. The least you could fucking do when they're reading your admission of guilt is fucking listen.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that really, really bothers me.
He even asked the detectives, do I have to listen?
Yeah,
and plugged his ears.
Freaking loser.
Yeah, because it's like, no, you don't. We can't make you. But let it be known you're cowardly.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Let's put that on the record. So, obviously, with his bullshit of no comment continuing on, the investigation team reaches the maximum 96-hour questioning limit allowed by law, for both Nathan and Shauna. And after exhausting this period, Nathan was formally charged with the murder of his stepsister, Becky Watts. Meanwhile, Shauna was detained because detectives wanted to get more evidence to determine her level of involvement in the crime. The answers that they were seeking would come when they later found the dismembered body of Becky Watts in the shed near Nathan's home. Her body had been separated into 8 different pieces. All were individually shrink-wrapped and put into different bags and tossed all over the shed. Among the bags containing Becky's remains, detectives found a face mask, which was sent for DNA testing. In addition, they found Nathan and Shauna's phones and their computers, which were sent to be analyzed. Now, what was shocking and really the break that the investigators needed to implicate Shauna was that when the DNA results came back from the face mask, her DNA was present, which obviously strongly indicates that she was involved in the dismemberment and disposal of Becky's body, which just further implicated her in the actual crime.
And proved that Nathan was keeping some information out of his confession.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as we said, the phones were also analyzed, and they found internet searches of pornographic material of girls the same age as Becky, which at the time was 16. They also found deleted text messages between Nathan and Shauna. The text messages proved really worrisome. Shauna and Nathan had been having conversations detailing potential plans of abducting a young female to keep in their loft.
That's concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't that so fucked?
Yeah.
It's like a little play toy for Nathan. Like, that's mess.
I would assume like a weird fucking sex toy. Like,
yeah,
oh my
exactly.
God.
Like some type of sex slave or something. Like, we've all
Yeah.
kind of heard of that, right? But
Yep.
it's super messed up. And this is exactly why it's just so weird. It's like, was it sexually motivated for Nathan, where he was truly like attracted to Becky and wanted that? And maybe he actually did panic when she saw his face and ended up killing her? Or, you know, was it his plan to just kill her and he was just rageful? Like, it's all a little convoluted, but yeah, it's just super weird. Maybe it was both. Maybe he had these fantasies of killing people, but also was like a weird sexual deviant, you know? It could be both. Who knows? But either way, as you can see, this is why I'm like, it is, his motives for this are just a little bit confusing. So we're going to get into a little bit more detail about his weird sex slave thing. So one of the texts from Nathan to Shauna in late 2014 said, "Fuck you. Bring me back 2 pretty schoolgirls then, D1. Text 2 from Shauna to Nathan said, "Just went to Cost Cutters and saw a very pretty petite girl. Almost knocked her out to bring her home. LOL."
You can imagine these are the types of conversations they're having through text. Imagine what's going on face to face.
Totally.
But it makes me think, like, was Becky just an easy target for them? And like, he knew that he could be home alone
with her?
Yeah, and no one would think anything about it.
Totally. Yeah,
right?
no, I can absolutely see it. It's like opportunity arises. It's easy, especially if you've never done it before, you know?
Yeah, like, and a lot of criminals, you know, they start off with like a lower key. Not that it was like low key crime to take Becky, but it was like a lower key risk. Like, he could get,
exactly.
It would be normal for him to be at the family home.
Instead of like picking someone off the streets.
Yeah, and having random people see or CCTV, like, it's lower risk.
Totally. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
So when Shauna and Nathan were questioned about these texts, they answered with no comment. And they maintained Shauna's lack of involvement. But regardless of their attempts to keep Shauna from facing any backlash, after new evidence had been unearthed, Shauna was also charged with Becky Watts' murder. Both Nathan and Shauna faced additional charges, including perverting the course of justice for lying about Shauna's involvement, preventing the lawful burial of a corpse, and possessing a prohibited weapon. Becky's autopsy revealed the grim details of her death. The cause was strangulation. Her body had, as we said, been dismembered into 8 pieces, with 15 post-mortem stab wounds to her abdomen and a stab wound to her neck inflicted by a screwdriver. So this is probably how there were blood splatters on her doorframe.
Yeah.
Her limbs were found wrapped in cling film and filled with salt, which was a method believed to aid in the mummification process.
That would make sense because ultimately they would decompose and stink.
Yes.
Especially just sitting in a shed.
Totally.
Right? So they want to like delay that from happening. And I guess that makes sense, but also like sinister.
So sinister.
Ugh.
Like, obviously you did research to find this out, right? Which goes to show that some of the things, like what his mom said, where she believes like he went there with the intention to kill her, that it makes that statement a lot more believable than him just in the heat of the moment, him having his mask pulled off and her seeing him and like a crime of just like panic. It doesn't really seem like that, right?
And also I have to say, if I was like a stepbrother and I just wanted to scare my sibling because she pissed me off, why would you kidnap her? Like, regardless, you're going to jail.
Yeah, that's messed
up. Like, regardless if you kill her, like, the ramifications are still really bad for you. So it just doesn't make sense that was
his thought process at all.
Yeah, like,
no.
No, it just
Makes no sense.
Sorry, Nathan. Just do not believe you.
Yeah, we don't conform to your wicked way of thinking.
No.
Finally, on October 6th, at Bristol Crown Court, the trial for Becky Watts' murder began. During the trial, the prosecution stated that Becky was suffocated in her bedroom during a sexually motivated kidnap plot carried out by Matthews and Hoare. According to the prosecution, after the killing, Matthews and Hoare put Watts' body into the boot of their car and stayed at the house for several more hours, during which time other family members arrived home. Later that day, they drove back to their own house, where over the next few days, they dismembered her body using a knife and a circular saw and put the remains into bags and boxes, which were then hidden in a neighbor's shed. The couple then deep cleaned the crime scene.
So that means that they were at the family home when people came home and they had Becky in the back of their car?
Yeah.
The fuck?
So freaking messed up, right?
Oh my God.
Like, damn. How do you do that? Why wouldn't you just get the F out of there?
Alibi, obviously, but still, like, how evil can you be? Like, you literally just, like, psyched your mom out to, like, create an alibi when her stepdaughter's sitting in the back of your damn car right outside the family home.
Yeah, no
That's messed
doubt.
up.
Oh, yeah. So
I'm actually,
creepy.
like, so appalled right now. Like,
yeah. How can you not be? It's just, like, diabolical, man.
Yeah. I'm that makes me so mad. Just mad.
Yeah, it just makes you so mad.
So mad.
I get it.
Yeah.
And also, when I hear the prosecution's statement, they do believe it was sexually motivated. At least that's what they say. So, you know, that's where I'm like, okay, now we have that going on. We have Nathan's own account, and it just gets a little bit weird. And then we get him touching her, Becky, when she was 8. Like, it's all just really confusing. But either way, without knowing the true nature of his motivations, we do know this guy is evil.
To the core.
To the core. And honestly, that's all we really need to know. And that's all the jury needed to know. And in late October, after just 3.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Nathan Matthews was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 33 years. Shauna Hoare was found guilty of manslaughter and received a 17-year sentence. In June of 2016, both Nathan and Shauna appealed their convictions, but their appeals were denied due to the overwhelming evidence against them. And on September 1st of 2023, Shauna Hoare was released from prison after serving just half of her sentence. Obviously, the family felt this was an absolute injustice.
Oh, no doubt. It's like, well, you helped kill our daughter. Glad you're out of prison.
Yeah,
glad you get to experience your life.
Yeah, however, the only caveat I would say to that is she was 15 years old when her and Nathan got together. Very impressionable at that time and at that age. And when you have someone that evil,
like controlling you kind of, or influencing how you are thinking.
Yes.
And what you're doing.
Yeah, it can have detrimental effects. Plus you add the fact that they were dating, they could have been intimate. That just adds a whole nother layer.
Mm-hmm. And imagine, even as a young woman, like she wasn't old.
No.
She's in her early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine your older boyfriend says, I want to do this. I want to kill my stepsister. Regardless of the motivation, you hear that, I would be petrified, be like,
if I don't help, what would he do to me?
Yeah, so like, do you go along with it? Like, there's so many layers to that and stuff that we have no idea, like, the dynamic completely.
And how it would truly, like, influence her actions, or how her decision-making would be affected as a result of all that.
Exactly. I can see it from her perspective. So that brings up the question, should she basically get a second chance at life to redeem herself?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, though, we do know right from wrong. And killing is 100% wrong.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that. Go to the police if you're put in that scenario. You know, play along so you don't yourself get murdered or something. But maybe stop by the police. Call 911.
Before it happens.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Save a life. Don't end one.
Yeah, totally. I get it, though. Like, why she was released, I do actually understand, given her age and all of that we said. But regardless of that, I can also empathize with her, or with Becky's family, as to why this felt like such an injustice to them.
100%.
Because they are the ones who lost their daughter so young before she even had a chance to do anything in the world, you know?
For sure.
And so while I understand why she was released, I also truly empathize with Becky's family. So it's a tough scenario.
It is a really tough scenario.
But it's also like, do you allow this guy, Nathan, who was so evil, just lay a path of destruction on every level, like ruin everyone's life? Or do you give one person that he ruined the life of a chance at, like you said,
like redemption, basically.
Redemption, yeah.
Yeah. Like you get to go out and be a better person, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the question. I mean, obviously the courts were able to justify that a little bit.
And they believe in, you know, redemption and things like that. But either way, this was a really tough case because it was so gruesome and just so calculated and really just appalling. So, yeah. So, Becky, that's all I have for you. And this was the tragic case of Becky Watts. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for sharing.
And just your weekly reminder to download our weekly episodes, follow us on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, and give us a follow on our social medias. You can find us at Luminol on the Wall. Can't wait till next week.